Well, I completely forgot how stupid it is to try to park in a parking lot in winter in Lethbridge. It's not this bad in Saskatoon. It's just not. It just wasn't. It just can't. It's stupid. As soon as there's a little snow on the ground, or slush, or ice, or anything, as soon as it's winter, basically, and it's snowed at least once, all of a sudden people completely ignore all the parking spots, all the spacing, everything, completely ignored. Even if it can be clearly visible. The yellow lines are clearly visible right now in this parking lot. And yet we've got people that are like, this always happens so much, especially at Park Place Mall. I'm not even there right now, though. I'm somewhere else. Where people, this is the last row of parking, and they'll park one more just because they can, because they want to, because oh, I didn't know, I couldn't see the lines or something. Like that's going to be their excuse. All of a sudden, they just park one more, and then obviously the area that you have to drive in to get to it becomes a complete mess. Well, I made 2 Etsy sales recently. One is another necklace, another spray tip necklace, so I gotta go and put that in an envelope and send it out. And a painting, going to Edmonton, a biggin. So I gotta wrestle with packaging that today. So we'll see how that goes. I just realized I need some newspaper. I gotta get some while I'm here. Shoot. Okay, gotta do it. So, I've made a Twitter account. Again, it's not the first time. I had an FK Arts one for a while. I found it did nothing for me in the way of reaching people, getting exposure, sharing my stuff. It just was a platform that wasn't working for me. I had a personal Twitter as well, and it was useful to me for a little while, but eventually it just wasn't. And maybe that's just because when Instagram came along, I was just a much more visual person, and I just found more fulfillment in that. I found it to be a little more engaging, but again, different platforms do different things for different people, draw different people to do different things, and I don't know, it's like some people can get the same thing from watching a movie as they can from reading a book, and I happen to enjoy both. But Twitter just wasn't for me for a while. Anyway, it's kind of Jordan's fault, because he was like, I'm going to get a Twitter. I was like, why? And he was like, well, I just have like some crap rolling around in my noggin and just want to get it out. And I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, now I got to get Twitter again to follow you. But I didn't create a new Twitter because Art Ballad has Twitter. So I was like, I'll just log into that and check out your stuff every once in a while. And that was kind of how I felt about it for a couple weeks. And then, yesterday, I just like had a couple quick thoughts. And I was just like, oh, I wish I could tell someone that thing, but I don't know who to tell that. Like, that's the thing that I don't know who to tell that thing to. And it was just like a silly little, just like a one-liner thing. It wasn't anything profound. It wasn't art. And I was like, this is why I would have Twitter. Like, this is why I would. Because I also wouldn't put it on Facebook. Like, I don't know, Facebook is something that some people use Facebook like Twitter. And I think I used to, which is part of the reason I probably wasn't using Twitter that much before. And like, I don't use Facebook like Twitter that much. And maybe I should post on Facebook more often and whatever, but I just don't that much. I find that it's more of a place where I end up, I throw some advertising things on there, whatever, and I don't know, I think my Snapchat is probably one of the most personal things I have, and that's probably why there's only like 20 people on there that I've allowed to follow me. But and Instagram has more like, for me, profound thoughts or feelings and emotions, my art one anyway. So I decided to make this Twitter, and I was like, I'm just going to put everything on the one. So it's John_FK_arts or John.FK.arts. That's how you can find me on Twitter. And I figure I'm just going to put everything on there. Like put my art stuff on there, my personal stuff on there, random stuff that I can't put anywhere else. So there is overlap on different platforms for me, which is something that people have brought to my attention before. I'm like, yeah, but there's also stuff that never crosses. Like, I don't know. If I think about book reviews, I put them on my personal Instagram. I don't put those on Facebook. Maybe I should start. Why not? I have way more people on Facebook, and it wouldn't be difficult to do. But for some reason, that's just not a thing I do. Sometimes, family stuff, a lot of it goes on Facebook, and some of it goes on my personal Instagram as well. And some of it goes on Snapchat, so there's this like cross thing there. My art stuff sometimes goes on my FK Arts, and then like my FK Arts Facebook and my FK Arts Instagram. There's plenty of stuff that only stays on Instagram and never reaches Facebook. So I don't know exactly how much overlap there'll be, but I know there will be stuff on my Twitter that I won't put anywhere else because it doesn't make sense right now for me to put anywhere else. So that's my story about Twitter. So I spray painted this big piece. These were all almost done, and thus why there's like all these different colors. I need to buy some cheap spray paint that I can use just for doing a quick background. That's what I have realized. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this. None at all. So I guess that's a challenge I've created for myself, and that was dumb. I painted this the other day and I was really happy with it. Now the word "was" is some foreshadowing. I put a finish on it, and I learned something. I learned that using my Gamvar finish that is beautiful, it does not work the right way with silver spray paint. Specifically silver. If you have used numerous types of spray paint of any brand, and you have also used silver, even if it's the same brand, you may know that the pigment that creates silver, there's something chemically in it that is just different. Different to the point that it smells different. Silver spray paint has a very chemical candy smell. It's kind of sweet in a way that the other paints aren't. And different brands of spray paint all smell different, but silver has a unique thing all its own to create that pigment. And something in that uniqueness also caused a problem with this finish. I have put this same finish on the same brand of spray paint of all different colors. But when I put it on here, all my silver started to lift with the brush and move over this. This red was much more vibrant before. It was as strong as this red. And this red. This stuff here. And the silver just went right over it. And now none of this stuff is as bright as it was before, which is giving the painting this feeling that is imbalanced, because this stuff is so, at the top, is so strong, and this isn't anymore, which is a problem. Yeah, the silver just dragged over, and I tried to lift it off. Well, you can see my paper towel here. I used some sponges, and I tried to like take all the silver off. And it also means that, you know, I'm not too worried about them having like, oh, this has this nice finish and this area doesn't, but it might cause some problems for sure. It not having a finish, other than the fact that it won't be protected from like UV rays and stuff, it also just won't look the same, which if I was doing it on purpose would be one thing, but I was not. So that is a hot tip for you, and me telling you that this is annoying. So I have made a reading realization. Had it a couple weeks ago about what I like to read, what's challenging for me to read, what's not enjoyable, etc. And I made this realization because Jordan has turned me on to a lot of books in the past year, or coincidentally a book that he's read that I've read, such as Middlesex by Jeffrey. Oh, what's his last name? Eugenides? I don't remember. The author of The Virgin Suicides as well. He read that, and I was like, okay, I have that book. I should read it, whatever. Anyway, suggestions of his, that, All the Pretty Horses, Revolutionary Road. I think it was just those three. But there's some things in common with them, and that is a portrayal of what I'm going to call mundane existence. They are in no way fantastical. They all share this storytelling of a person's reality and the existence as we know it on this earth and whatever. So there's nothing fantastical about them. But also they just are kind of like, hey, this is life. And that's it. Just letting you know, life exists. And yes, of course, there's got to be conflict in there. There's different types of conflict and whatever. But I realized when I was talking to him the other day that I was like, oh, this is why I have such a hard time reading those books, what I call your books, the ones that he enjoys reading, not the kind that he necessarily writes. But it's because it's just like, hey, this is life, and just deal with it. That's it. Deal with it. This is life. It doesn't work out. The things that are going to happen, they suck, and I'm just letting you know now you have to go on your merry way and deal with it and live with that knowledge. And they challenge me, so I appreciate them. But they're not the thing that I gravitate towards, that I've never gravitated towards reading, because there isn't necessarily a happy ending, because they remind me that there's no true peace and justice in the world, which is obviously not a very optimistic or a karmic point of view, but it's reality that there's rarely peace and justice in so many circumstances that we face. And again, that's just life. That's what it is. That's just, there it is, and you got to deal with it. And that is why I don't like reading those types of things as much. If it's good, then I want to read it. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different genres of books that I really enjoy reading, but the thing is, a lot of them usually, this also ties into the ending type thing. There's plenty of things like dystopian fiction that doesn't have necessarily a happy ending that I'm okay with, but that's because they're dystopian. We're talking about things, or like science fiction or fantasy or whatever. In some cases, Black Mirror as well. We're talking about things that I'm like, yeah, that's, even though Black Mirror is mirroring, a lot of the issues that we have now and potentially will have in the future based off of what's happening now, with these horrible endings, they don't get wrapped up in a nice, tidy way and in a happy ending or whatever. I don't mind that, but it's because there's an element to it that I don't identify with. It's so separate from me that it's okay that it doesn't end up well. But when it's one of these, like, hey, this is just life, and here's the story of this is what life is, it's a reminder of the reality to me. And reading novels for me is usually an escape from reality. So this is why I want either more peace and justice, or I want it to be more fantastical so I can remove myself from the fact that it doesn't work out, and that's just a reflection of the reality of life. Reading Realisations. One of the worst feelings in the world is pumping gas, standing there while it's freezing outside, and the wind is cutting you to the core. Such is winter on the prairies. Thought I'd get in on the Thankful Thursdays. Randy just expressed some extreme gratitude for some local folks that bought some of her art, bought some of her pieces, and she was able to fund like over half of her Christmas shopping trip the other day with that, and that's great. She's been selling a lot locally recently. Things picked up for me on Etsy, actually, a little bit. It's still so hit and miss that it's hard to say, like, oh wow, this is like a new trend and I'm really gaining some momentum, because it could be like someone orders one thing, like anything for me with sales. Like, Randy's been really consistent since she started selling paintings, like really consistent. And for me, it's still very hit and miss. But with Etsy, this past week, I've sold 3 things. One was a necklace that was pretty cheap, and then there was a painting that was like $30, and then I sold a big painting that was $120, I think, $120. So that's cool. That's all in the past week. But I mean, like I said, I've had things before where it's been like, and not trying to be pessimistic, but just realistic with what, like, the reality of the situation. And what has happened is that I've sold like 2 pieces in a week, and then like nothing for like months. So I'm really thankful though for the people that are buying pieces. That's great, and definitely helps me out, especially getting closer to the holidays, and that's always a financially more draining time, I guess. A lot more expenses, especially if we want to travel to see family, and there's the culture of Christmas and whatever else, right? So that's been really nice. Now, to flip that Thankful Thursday on its head, my friend in the States, who is also a teacher, but on the opposite end of the spectrum as me, he teaches high school science and well, I think it's mostly just science. I don't think he's doing any math right now, but maybe. I kind of forget. But sciences, for sure. And he was saying that, like, you know, that people there just really don't appreciate teachers as much as they do in Canada. Obviously, that doesn't stand for every single person, but just the culture there is like, they hear you're a teacher and they're like, okay, like, or they scoff or they like laugh at you, or just like, really, that's what you're doing with your life? This came up because he was talking about how, you know, in his state, it's just like they're shutting everything down and telling everyone to stay home, and like Thanksgiving, it's like a no-go, like you can't have family gatherings, and they're ticketing people and all this stuff. And a reminder that U.S. Thanksgiving is later than ours, so that's right now for them. And, well, around the corner anyway. But they still have schools open. They have schools and teachers in the classroom. And he was saying, you know, it's because it's like the backbone of the economy, not in the way that you might think, what if I say that phrase, but because the teachers are just babysitters. Like, so you need your kids to go to school so that you can go to work for whatever jobs that are still open and available, and whatever, that if you're like, you need, like, you can't stay home and not work, and then whatever, and then it cycles, right? And he's saying, like, yeah, it's just messed up over there. But he was just also talking about how the profession is just so not, I mean, and I completely understand that culture of the States too, but, and that's it's a cyclical thing, and the culture there with a lot of things is just kind of not how I would like it if I was living there or in that profession and stuff. But I mean, that's the thing. I feel like a lot more teachers there get into teaching for the wrong reasons, and because of that, there's also this thing of like not appreciating teachers, and they're just the reciprocal thing, and just plays off each other, and what's chicken and the egg, and then like, you know, how they pay their teachers and the benefits that they get, that they don't get, that they're not appreciated even by their own school districts, by the system, then by the parents, and then by like just society as a whole. Like, it's a whole circular thing, and it's going to take a lot to turn it around. One thing I really loved about Alberta when I got my teaching certificate here was, I don't remember what the Latin is now. I should have looked it up. But the ATA, the Alberta Teachers Association, their motto or creed or whatever you want to call it is masters, not servants. I believe that's what it is from memory anyway. And I loved that, because I was like, yeah, like, I have a degree in my teaching area, and I have a teaching degree, and yeah, I am a master of my teaching area, my main teaching area. Like, that's like that is being a professional, like, you know what I mean, and calling it a profession, and being at least by our teaching association to be giving this air of, yeah, we're a profession, and we're not glorified babysitters, and we want to be respected as such, and that they really go to bat for us in a lot of ways. So I definitely appreciate that. I guess I am on Thankful Thursday still. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna wrap up the vlog. There is a conversation that I have about kids being kids. You can check that out. About kids being kids and why that's like important, or maybe not as important, and what it means. Like, let a kid be a kid, and like, okay, but we also, you know, we also need to teach kids to be adults, because that's where they're headed next, and they're gonna be adults way longer than they're gonna be kids. So anyway, you can check that out, and that's the only other video I got this week, so we'll see you on another time.